that doesn't happen. All right, Kira, I am going to begin. And just, you're seeing the PowerPoint, Kira?
Yes, I am. I can see it.
Okay. All right. I'm not sure if this is good. It's hard to work with my syncing. Okay, ladies. I don't see Vernon yet, and oh, Sonia just stepped in. Ah, there you go, Carrie. Hi. Okay. All right. So we got one more. She missed the boat? Oh, I traveled with her. Great. Oh, that's lovely. So it works. Okay. All right. Everybody's just settling in here at Mona. So let me give Sonia 30 seconds. Sure. 30 seconds to breathe, and then we'll get cracking. Oh, I was just gonna say, Sonia, what have you done? Okay, thank you. Okay, all right. So we're looking today at oral communication in the language classroom. Before I go there, you know, my favorite thing is to look back at what we learned last week, ensure that. Are you growling, Sajana? Ensure that we connect what we learned last week to what we're going to do this week. Connection is very important. So we start by looking at keywords. If the words are hitting your heart with force, and you know your eyes and your pulse and everything starts to function with it, then it means that you're on the right track. So let's see how many pulse beats we can get out of some of these things. I don't want you to get stuck on the academic definitions, merely the academic definitions. I want us to see if we understand what everything is all about. So let's go through. I'm going to skip out some of them since we're starting up a few minutes late. So I'll look at Delheim's, I'll look at communicative competence, and I'll look at register. Those three, we'll focus on those three. Any takers? When I say Delheim's, what? Kira, why are your face looking like that? Right? I'm so petrified. What do you think of when I say Delheim's? What comes to your mind when I say Delheim? Anybody?
The speaking acronym.
Good, right. So Sonia was saying the same thing. So speaking acronym.
Yeah.
Do you remember anything from the speaking acronym? Just
yes.
Let's go. Can we go? Yeah. From S?
Okay. So the S would be the sequence, the setting, sorry, and the scene.
Excellent. Anybody?
Yeah, and
P?
Okay.
Anybody here? P? Who is involved in the event? Yes, so what's the other word for people?
Participants.
Right, participants. And then E? So John, you don't mind yet, you researching the point there. E would be?
The ends.
Very good, okay. A?
Act sequence.
Excellent. K?
Key.
Very good. I? Instrumentalities, right? N?
Norms.
Say that again?
Norms.
Right. Values, etc. Yes, norms. And
norms
G.
And
Last one.
And
G.
Genre.
Excellent. Great stuff. Okay. So let's go now. Somebody from Mona, and then Carrie. You know I'm going to come to you eventually, Carrie. So you can run, but you can't hide. Let's look at communicative competence. Those of you here at Mona, what does that say to you? Communicative competence. Your ability to communicate. Yes. Anything else? Yes. So the skills that are necessary. Yes, to allow you, to enable you to communicate in an effective manner, in a way that will cause meaning to be received and understood. All right, Carrie, you want to just chance the register for me? what would register be referring to when we looked at register last week? And it's not the register that we take at the start of the class. Okay, Ashley saving it. Yes.
One is subject based.
Excellent. Yes, subject focus. Yes.
Is as I can explain, subject based
Sure.
basically the idea that say two people in an occupation may share a certain words and certain understandings of each other. And then the other one is more speaker to speaker. In other words, the way you speak to your child versus the way you speak
To an adult in different formalities. Okay. All right. Excellent. Do we just want to touch on age? Anybody figure out where does age fit in? It fits in. We looked at two particular general factors that affect communication. Right. One starts with P, one starts with S, and age, neatly fitted into one of them. Do you remember? Oh, Carrie, I can't hear you because your mute is on.
Okay, no, actually, the sound went for a while.
Okay.
But is one the speaking register?
Sorry, say that again.
The speaking register?
Speaking register. Did you hear Ashley at all?
No, not really.
Oh, okay.
Fine.
Yeah, she had gone through the register, so I had moved on from register. And
I'm hearing you at time.
Oh, I wonder what that's about. All right, well, as soon as Mr. Dixon comes back in here, I'll ask him to try and figure out what that's about. You have your technician there with you, Carrie? You're not hearing me? All right. Hear me now? Little bit? Yes?
Yeah.
Well, can you speak to your technician? Because there are times when I'm missing, your voice is missing as well at times. Even though you're not on mute.
Okay.
So, I don't know if, yeah, thanks. Where were we, guys? Right, so I'm saying there are two main factors that we looked at last week affecting communication, right? One was psychological, the other was?
Social.
Very good, thank you, Kira. Save the date. All right, so we have psychological and we have social. So which one does age fit under? No, social. Yes, okay. All right, so psychological, we're looking at perception, the things that are internal and that affect, based on our experiences. All right, good. All right, so I'm trying to wait on Carrie because I don't really want her to miss anything.
What are the four components of confidence?
So, yes, I'm skipping out some of them because of the time. I really wanted to rush through the time. But you would have gotten that with Canal and Shrina. All right, let me just start. Let's look at an overview because we have quite a bit to get through today, and we're going to try to finish on time. We're going to look at introducing oral communication, understanding that now we've moved away from the theoretical, and let me say that carefully. Everything we do is grounded in principle and theory, yes, but we're going to look at the more practical aspect of the classroom as we move on now. So if you notice on your course outline, we're in a different section altogether right now. So the first section was just to ground us, to have us understand the foundation of language use and what it meant to say language use. Now we're looking at language use through the different modes or representations, yeah? And oral communication is the first one we're looking at because it is so important to the concept of language use. We'll look at interactive classroom as defined by Rivers. We'll look at the role of oral communication in the language use classroom. Notice I keep saying language use because I want it to be clear how we are focusing on the English classroom. Listening in the language use classroom because listening will come under the oral communication. Oral communication tasks, what do they look like? Can you make up those oral communication tasks? Carrie, we're just going through overview. All right, we're just looking at what we're looking at today, right? And of course, we want to look at the benefits generally of oral communication tasks. If I don't get to the benefits, then we certainly have to fulfill go through the rest of the list. That would be very important. Okay. Any questions at all before I start? Is everybody good to go? Yep. All right. All right, so we start with looking at what is oral communication. There. Okay, and oral communication, it says, is a process which involves both speaking and listening. I think we all knew that to a great extent already. There's some writers, language researchers, language critics who you will notice that they separate pronunciation from speaking. I've subsumed it here, but there's some who believe that pronunciation is actually so huge by itself and so important because your accent can shift and determine how somebody responds to you, or whether or not they actually understand the message that you're conveying. So some persons do put pronunciation as another part of the process, but we're focusing on speaking and listening. Okay. All right. Now, when we're looking at interactive classroom, because once we're looking at oral communication, right? Once we're looking at communicative language teaching approaches, then we're automatically looking at an interactive classroom. And the person who has defined that kind of classroom is Wilga with us, all right? And defined it quite nicely, very reader friendly. I'm still waiting on RVLE to, I'm not sure, I was just speaking to Mr. Dixon about why it's not yet, why I'm not seeing anybody on it yet. I'm seeing an old group of students that I taught at least 3 or 4 years ago. So I'm not sure what the problem is with it. But go ahead, Kira.
I have a problem with our VLE.
Yeah.
Initially, I registered to do the modern language part of this course.
Right.
But because of numbers, I had to switch to the English. So now I can't access any of the materials for the English course because it says I'm not registered for that.
Well, the thing is, Kira, that nobody, based on my knowledge, is able to access it because I'm not seeing anybody in this course on my site, in my course container. So you're not the only one. So I don't even know if the reason you can't access it is just simply because of you. Are you with me? I think it's a little bigger than that. Something is obviously happening. Okay. All right. So I have to look into that. Somebody told me last week, somebody said to me that they were told they'd be able to get on last week. And I think Vernon also indicated that he was told once he had registered, everything would be clear. So I'm not sure what the problem is. And the issue for me with that is because when we do what we do here, that's where I would put in all the articles. It's really cumbersome to be sending them via email and expecting, you know, that kind of organization that we would be able to have within the units. But if by the end of this week that doesn't happen, then that's what we're going to have to start doing. All right? Okay. So Rivers looks at the centrality of interaction, and of course, by the centrality, what she's saying is that this is paramount, this is crucial, is important, and that you can't have communication, you can't understand and properly use language unless you are couching it, embedding it within interaction. Students become competent users of a language when their attention is focused on conveying and receiving authentic messages. Okay, so not just little, you know, what we would call hear-em, scare-em, not just any little thing you pull out of a textbook, right? That doesn't necessarily make them competent. It's when they can use the language based on the fact that their attention is focused or centered on them using that language in an authentic way, in a meaningful way, a way they would use it in regular life. Linguistic interaction is a collaborative activity involving the establishment of a triangular relationship. Notice again, our context keeps coming back. It's not just the sender and the receiver of the message, but also the context which surrounds that message. Right. Okay. All right. Continuing with Rivers, interaction involves expression of one's own ideas, but it also involves the comprehension of the ideas that others express. All right. These factors should be present as students learn to communicate. So what it's saying is that the classroom, if you're having this language use classroom, the language use classroom ought to be shaped based on these factors, all right, based on an awareness of how interaction actually functions in real life. So these factors should be present: listening to others, talking with others, and negotiating meaning in a shared context. So it's not simply about my opinion, but what is your opinion? And what if I disagree with it? Is there a place that we can come to where we can find some kind of balancing ground, right? Understand too, if we just think of what we've been doing for the past 2 weeks in particular and looking at a traditional language classroom, that most of the time is spent writing. If you think about it, most of the time the students are given writing tasks, and those tasks are not necessarily contextual either. Okay, so there's no proper frame for those tasks. There's little talking because it is believed that the classroom where there's too much talk means that the teacher is not you know, nurturing discipline. Yes, okay, it's not a good classroom. And of course, listening to others usually means listening to the teacher if the teacher is dictating or giving instruction, that kind of thing. All right, so it's to start to begin to look at whether we have interactive classrooms or not, and how can we create and sustain these classrooms. The teacher is to create or stimulate student creation of the types of situations in which interaction actually occurs in real life, natural interaction. So it is up to us as facilitators to ensure that we pull the context into the classroom. The students, you can't rely on the students to do that, because clearly the kind of scaffolding that needs to take place for that to happen is on our part, not theirs. Okay, and so the idea is when we pull that into the classroom, they will be able to use what they have learned in actual communicative events. Again, I'll bring up the French example. I remember learning French when I had to live in England. I had to learn French, and it was you know, just an oral class. And again, we did things like you go to the bakery, because you know the bakery is a big thing there, right? You go to the bakery, you want pastry, you want this. How do you say this? What is the cost of this? What we were looking at are the everyday activities of people. What are the things that I really need to know in order to function in this society? And that's what Rivers is saying, that we are the ones who have to take these things into the classroom. All right. In second language situations, and you notice we keep stressing second language because that's our reality. I don't think we can run away from it. Even those who claim to be competent users of English, I'm telling you, half of the time their English is not English. Okay, they really struggle. They may sound a particular way, but if you get some writing from them, you would realize that they're struggling. In second language situations, interaction becomes crucial for survival in a new language and culture. Okay, and in new language, we're looking at clearly as the target language, which is standard English. And students ought to be helped with varying styles of interaction. Now, understand what that means. I'm speaking to the students all the time. I'm talking to the students and I'm saying, but I'm the teacher and I'm modeling the language, but that's one style of interaction. How many styles have they been exposed to? If they go to a banquet, can they manage? If they go to the post office, can they manage? You understand what I mean? If they're writing an email, do they understand that you can't just send an attachment? Do they say, dear so-and-so, kindly find attached? Are you with me? Simple things, but up to tertiary level, we have problems with students who will do that. They'll just send an attachment. Nobody says anything, and they'll say, no, miss, but you told me to email you, so I did. You know, and some of these languages. Yeah, so you have to look at, but then you have to reflect on yourself. Is there something I am not doing that's causing them to not understand? Because realize that people come with different backgrounds and different levels of exposure to how to function in a given context. Okay. So I want us to look at the weapons in school activities. So if you have it, I would love you to take it out for me, please. Okay, now I'm probably going to have to ask different ones of you to read different sections of it as we look at it. What we're going to do with this activity, this is an oral communication activity, and this is perhaps for a grade 10, grade 11 up kind of class, okay? I want you to look at what is happening with this activity and assess what is happening with the activity. So, can I have a reader? The first part, just the prose part that is given the scenario. Can I have a reader for the scenario, and then we'll go into the tasks separately. Welcome, Mira. Okay. Go ahead. Shantae is going to read for us. Go ahead.
Lorenzo Goody is a fifth form student at Bakersfield High, a school with an improving reputation in the Garden Parish of Jamaica. He moved around with a group of boys who were always very noticeable. Lorenzo has had some problems in the past. He had one letter sent home for his parents to come in and see the principal. That was when it was discovered that he was often left on his own, as his father, 57, was in New York, and his mother made many long and frequent trips to Panama as an informal commercial importer, or an ICI. On this occasion, he was in Miss Stevens' English class. He sat next to Clive Bailey, a boy who had not long arrived from England, and who was having some adjustment problems. The class was quietly writing when Miss Stevens popped out to use her cellular phone. She heard a crash and that she was just connecting to her. She heard a crash as she was just connecting to her travel agent. She rushed back in the class to see Lorenzo with knife in hand. Clive was on the floor. "But it's not mine, miss," said Lorenzo. Keisha, who was sitting behind, shrugged her shoulders. "Sorry, miss, I was doing my work." As there is a very strict rule about weapons in the school, Lorenzo was taken to the principal in preparation.
Okay, so we have the scenario before us. Not a scenario that's by any means unreal. Okay, in fact, we'd probably have worse scenarios in some instances. Okay, all right. So based on that scenario, what you're going to do is students would have been given this scenario. Okay, so students of a particular class, they're given this scenario, and then they're given the particular tasks that you will see at the bottom of your page. All right, Kira, can I ask you to just read the first task for us, please? Kira? Oh, the mute button. Right.
Yes.
Go ahead.
What is to be done is that part?
That right. And then you'll see them in categories. So just say the first one for me, please.
Okay. Make the case for Lorenzo's
Right.
expulsion. Make notes on the case you present. Elect a speaker to put that case.
Okay. So what we're doing is clearly we're dividing the class into particular groups. All right. Now, based on what she just said, what are the students going to be expected to do for that one? What's the main task there? What are they doing? They're witnesses, yes, and they're providing evidence based on what they saw unfolded before them. Okay, and they're making a case. If they're making a case, who is the audience? So the school board is the audience. So Carrie, let me pull you in. If the school board is the audience, what type of language are they using? Formal or informal?
They're using formal language.
Yes, so it would be highly formal. They have to be careful about how they say what they say because they're representing the situation now to the board who is going to ultimately decide what will happen. Okay? When they do this, what format do you think it should take? We could use the word genre here, but what format do you think it should take? Anybody? Would it be a letter, which would be the very common type, format for this kind of thing to take. Is there any other way?
For me, in an oral communication context,
yeah.
disciplinary committee.
Yes.
So each person would go
before
the panel.
Right. And state.
And they state.
Good afternoon, Grandma. Okay. All right. So we could have it. So even though it's oral, we still have the letter, but yes, there are other formats. So you're saying that you think they could represent, each of them representing what they saw before this disciplinary committee. Right. And the important thing there is when they represent that, the level of formality would have to remain the same.
Absolutely.
Yes? Right.
Minutes would be taken.
Minutes would be taken, etc. Very good. Okay. Anybody else on that particular task? Do we have a purpose established? What's the purpose? Right. So the purpose of this is to convince who of what? Give me to convince the board that Lorenzo is guilty. Excellent. You see, it looks simple.
No, it says expulsion. Say
that again, Kira.
Oh no, I was speaking to
Delira. Okay.
Yes.
Right. So what I'm saying is it looks simple, but if the students don't understand the purpose of why they're creating this, it affects what they're going to say. Yes, they will either omit things that they should put in, or they'll put in things that are unnecessary. Okay. So let's look at the task, the second group task. Lyra, since you're joining us, can you read the second task for me or for us?
Make the case for Lorenzo staying in school, elect a leader, and make notes.
Okay, so we're to make a case for Lorenzo to stay in school. This is not saying Lorenzo didn't do it. This is saying even if he did it, let him stay here. And so notes are to be taken as well. So we have more than one format possibly in this for this group. Agreed? Okay, so because from the notes, we're also able to make the case from the notes, yes? Persons will have to present from whatever notes they make. All right, so purpose for this is, quickly? Yes, but, yes, okay, so can you rephrase it?
That Lorenzo is worth investing in, continuous investment in school.
Yes, so we do not want Lorenzo to leave, we do not want him to be expelled. Okay, audience? Same school board, okay? Do you think anybody else might be in attendance? Anybody else that might be relevant? Right, parents, Shante was saying, what were you saying, Kira?
Lorenzo's parents, maybe?
Right, I would think that the parents would have to come in at some point, yes? And this would be a good point, especially if we're making the case for him to stay. In fact, they may want to contribute to that as well, all right? Okay, let's look at the third one quickly because this is not my main aim. The third one is? You guys are loudly phone, it's more loudly.
At the school board, you're called on to discuss the case.
That's the whole thing.
The scenario very carefully and see where there might be ambiguity.
Okay, so we have a little shift here. So the school board now, having heard everything, is going to decide what to do. It's going to weigh the evidence and decide what to do. Who becomes the audience at this point? When they weigh everything, what do they do? What are they going to now decide? Whether he stays or leaves. So they're going to have to say something. Agreed? They're going to have to present based on what has been presented to them. Yes? All right. Now, their audience, therefore, is going to be? Who is their audience going to be?
The students.
Students. Who else? Parents. Teacher involved. Yes? Okay? All right. We'd assume that the principal is around because he would have to, or she would have to be on the board. Okay. All right. And the last one. That's not the last one, is it? No. Right. Very good. That's where I want to go. So, yes? Go ahead. Loudly, so that
as a policy making group, read and discuss any policy statement or issues presented before you hear the case. Decide on steps to be taken and report in the board.
Okay. So look at this genre here now. We have a policy document. What do policy documents entail? And the students would have to be introduced to the concept of a policy document. Right. So the policy document, almost like your handbook, right? That dictates how the school is to be run, what are the school rules, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. So we're looking at a very important genre here, right? And we're moving in and out of oral and written, recognized, okay? Because we're hearing, we're speaking, we're listening, and we're going to write. And then we're going to speak from that which we have written, right? So you recognize it keeps going around and around. Welcome, Vernon. Okay. All right, let's look at the questions here as it pertains to this activity. And remember that the students would have been in different groups, they're doing different things, but at the end of the day, they're all going to hear what each group would have, how each group would have responded based on the different items. So, why and how is this a good English lesson that reflects a functional approach?
In context.
So one, Ashley is saying there's context. Agreed, everybody? There is context here? Yes. Okay. We have context and we have a relevant context. A context that, you know, is situated within a teenager type, school type space. Yes. Okay. What else? Anybody else? So we have context. Huh? Drama. We have drama. Role play. Yes, I know what you mean. Okay. Anything?
If I say that it is it shows it's a real life situation, would that still be context?
It's an extension. So contextual is a real life situation, but contextual is more general than that in the sense that I can say there's a social context, it's a psychological context, there's a historical context, there's the context of the learner, and I could go on and on. What you are saying, I think the word you need there is authentic, right?
Authentic.
Real life situation, yes, speaks to authenticity. So it's an authentic situation. So the context is established, but then the situation is authentic. It's something that could possibly happen in life, has perhaps happened in life, or something that we think plausible coming out of what normally happens in life. Okay? And we use authentic to speak to materials as well. All right? The newspaper article is an authentic material. The radio is authentic. Talk shows, that those things that authentic. We look at those things that are authentic. Authentic resources, authentic material, authentic context or situations. Very good question, actually. All right. Anything else? Functional. I just want to see that you understand how functional works. What functional would look like. That's important. So we have context. We have authentic situations or materials. Anything else?
We also have a student-oriented approach, where the students are the ones given the task of coming up with solutions or coming up with a case for or against Lawrence's expulsion.
Exactly. So the students are utilizing interaction, okay, and they're doing it in a way that allows them to control the communicative event. Teacher is not dictating what is to happen necessarily. They're negotiating meaning, and that's very important. Excellent. And when you say student-centered, I push you even more and look at the fact that it's relevant. We want to utilize the CLT terms as well, and purposeful. Okay, so that's what I think that's what you meant, or you were also alluding to purposefulness and relevance when you look at the student-centered idea. So it's something that they can easily relate to, but it's something that they understand why they're doing this, which is very important. Why am I doing this? At the end of the day, how does this help me? Where does it fit in? Great. Okay. It has an audience. Let me just ask you that you plug that in the interest of time. It has an audience. All right. Every activity you give students must have an audience. You can be an audience as well. But what we're saying is the teacher should always be the audience. I'm aware of the different types of audience that they'll have in various communicative events. Okay. Vernon, are you hearing?
Kira, can you shut off, please?
Harry?
Hi, I'm hearing feedback.
Oh. You checked with, you're hearing feedback from Kira. Okay. Is that better now? No, that's not Kira that you heard feedback from, because I'm hearing it and she's Vernon, can you hear us? That's where the feedback is coming from. It feels like he's, my grandmother would say, clouting the machine. I'm not sure what's going on there. Vernon? He's trying. He's knocking something over. Yes. I think that's where it was coming from, Carrie. It has kind of dwindled now, and we were getting it as well. Okay. Hopefully he'll hear us soon, because he's not on mute, so he would have responded. All right. Can we look at the language skills that are being developed through this activity, through this task? What language skills are being developed through this task? So we have the oral communication language skills, yes. What else? Written. We also have the written communication language skills, and we haven't really gone there as a topic, but we will. And that's the reality, that it demonstrates to them that we're very rarely in one zone only. We often have to move over across zones, across modalities, yes. Okay, anything else?
Will you dig into registering?
Certainly, and that's very important actually, because it teaches them how to use language in particular context. So yes, so the register, Ashley was saying register is vital, it's important. The fact that there's some tasks that seem a little more informal than other tasks. Note-taking, for example, is not a formal, you don't use language formally in note-taking, but when they have to now take what they have and present it, then it moves into a formal mode. So those things are important, okay? When you see something, I've actually given this to students and seen it in play. When you see it in play, it's also one of the things you notice too is perception coming out, okay? Somebody feels X way, and you're in a group and everybody has to now communicate together and come up with a particular path. And so you have people on different levels, and there you have the negotiation of meaning as well. And because the people, somebody, for example, who has a mother as a principal would behave and react very differently to this expulsion than somebody who has had 3 siblings who have been expelled and they're at home, and that person is feeling the anguish of the parents trying to figure out what do they do with the children. Are you with me? Right, tending to, right? And you know, so you have different levels of sympathy based on your background and experience. Okay, all right, everybody with me? Lira, Kira, Kerry? Yep. All right, great. Perception will come under the psychological factor, but it is not the language scale. What is the language scale? Is the negotiation of meaning, which is influenced by perception. So you think one way because of what you perceive. I think another way, but we have to negotiate. As a result of the differences in perception, we now have to negotiate, and that is a skill.
So
Debating is definitely another skill. Yes.
As opposed to negotiation.
No, not as opposed, but I would put it separately still, because negotiation is that process, okay? Whereas debating, arguing over X is another thing altogether. If you think about it, if we have negotiation, it means that we are working out something, as opposed to debating where we are actually arguing. Yes, it's very similar, as you'll find with many of these things. There's a little overlap in there, but they're different skills. Okay, because we can have a debate and we still don't end up negotiating in the way that we could have. Are you with me? And so we may not acquire the skills of negotiation. Okay, I'm trying to think. There's a movie in my head, but I cannot. I'm really horrible at that. I'll watch the same movie 5 times, cry 5 times, and then at the end I'll remember that I watched it before, right? Because there's a movie like that. I think it was Denzel. You know, it would have to be Denzel, right? With Vernon is not on. You can tell that Vernon is not on. He's not responding to my comment. But where it showed the difference between a regular person utilizing communication and language and the negotiator who comes in. The language of negotiation is completely different from somebody else who's coming in, who starts off very calmly, but then gets worked up because the person is playing on their emotions. And so they start to get angry and the language becomes heated, whereas the negotiator is used to handling the circumstance or the situation, and it remains calm and knows the right words to use, the right tone of voice, etc. Okay, so you see the difference between the argumentation and the negotiation. Okay, what are the language in use concepts that we're looking at here? Language in use concepts. And this is very similar to the functional approach, because remember they would be coming under the same banner. But what are the language in use concepts? Concepts now. What are the ideas that are surfacing here about using language in the classroom? So, tell me what you mean by expressive.
Using it to explain a situation.
Okay, so there we go. So language is used to explain. That's one. Anything else? Language, yes. So language enables reflection and is used also to express what one has reflected on. Anything else? Well, communicative language is going to ground it, but you understand. So when I'm saying language and use concepts, what I'm saying is, as opposed to skills, the skills are the things that the student, the items that the student is acquiring would be the skills, right? The concepts are what is coming out of this class about how a language use classroom ought to look. What ideas, right? So interaction is present. Kerry, any yes?
Listening.
Very good. So listening is also present. Yes. Anything else? So we have group discussion here, very specifically, and I'm linking it to the group. You'll see why later. But group discussion, because group discussion is very important and it's very different from whole class discussion. Okay? Yes? Brainstorming, good. And that gives a student, that's when we look at the different levels which we're coming to, that gives a student a different way to express themselves. Yes, so it's a different form of writing and also a different form of communication, oral communication as well, because they're going to read out or talk about what they have expressed. Okay? Alright? So the bottom line is that when you're looking at the language use concepts, what you want to look at, what are the things that make this classroom different from a language as structure classroom? And that's what you want to think at. Yes. So when you look at, if this is a functional approach, what I'm saying is you want to be able to flesh out, you want to be able to step into a classroom and look around, and based on the stance of the teacher, based on what the students are doing, you can say, this is a language use classroom. I'm seeing particular ideas being expressed here or being shown. Sometimes it's not what we say, it's what you see the students
So you
doing.
need to say the 3.
I don't want you to get hooked on only 3 because we've covered so many terms. But what I'm saying is you'll see the functional approach, you'll see interaction happening, you'll see group work, you'll see collaboration, right? Somebody mentioned, Kerry mentioned listening. So you see active listening, which we'll get into later, not people just sitting down and, okay, teacher is dictating, let's take in. But they're listening to each other because remember, I have to write. In order to really communicate, I have to understand what you are saying. Is that clear? The only way I can understand is if I'm actually listening. Yes. You know when people say, no, you're not listening, you're hearing me, but you're not listening? Yes. So there's a difference between just hearing what I'm saying and listening. Something I know my husband always says, for example, is you cannot possibly listen to me if you are talking while I'm talking. Okay, but it's true. When you think about it, it's true that if I keep interrupting, then I'm actually not listening. Yes, but sometimes we're so, passionate and we want to get across our point, and so we just keep, throwing out. Okay, let's look at what might have come before. What do you think? Staying with the language use classroom, what might have come before this task? What might the teacher have been focusing on? Persuasion. So we may have been looking at the art of persuasion. We could be looking certainly at persuasive essays. She may have already discussed the structure of that essay, the way the essay ought to be shaped, yes? And she wants to give them beef content, okay, to get into that essay. Great. It could be report writing. Very good. Everybody in agreement there? Hira, Perry. Yes? Could be report writing as well. Anything else?
Dr. Spencer, can you repeat what you said there a while ago?
She said report writing. She said report writing could have been. Ashley said persuasive writing, and Dharma said report writing.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Anything else?
Argumentative writing.
Yes. Good. Right. So building an argument, things that will have them negotiating, debating, sharing. Okay. All right. Now that's before. What may come after this? What might we do after this? So yes, and the reflection would come in what? How would that reflection come about? What? Because that has to take. Remember, the genre is always important. So what am I going to give them? How am I couching that reflection if they are going to reflect? And what are they reflecting on?
They could write an essay.
They could write an essay, and how would I set that essay up? What kind of topic might I give for that essay based on the fact that it's coming out of this weapons in school activity? So we could look at school rules. Any other topic?
Or it could be Lorenzo's guilty. Lorenzo. So many people think Lorenzo's guilty. Agree or disagree.
So they could actually go into the specific case itself, right? And through the oral communication, form of a debate, have their points. You're going to tell them their for and against points if they're, trying to look at it objectively, or if they've already taken a side, they're going to have to give you their 3 points on X, and they're good. All right? Yes. Go ahead.
You mentioned about persuasion.
Yes.
They could have a poster.
Good. Okay.
To express actually what happened in a class, the whole idea of school policy.
Okay. So maybe a poster that readdresses school policy. Okay. So they rewrite rules. That's fine. That's fine. Everybody hearing that? Right. I was just going to ask you what what language elements might we look at if we utilize language in a poster form or an essay? What language elements? Because I'm teaching grammar as well, and I'm teaching mechanics. So what might I look at? Let me go over to St. Lucia, just to give you a chance to come in. What could I help the students? What language skills could I help the students to acquire here? What language elements might I look at? Do you understand the question?
No.
All right, let's go again. So what they're saying is, let us say we're going to write this persuasive essay. Think of a persuasive essay, and then on the other hand, think of a poster. Creation of a poster based on policy rules. Okay? And what I'm saying is, when I create that activity, I'm also going to be teaching grammar and mechanics. I'm going to be teaching the various components of language, the various elements, whether it's types of sentences, whether it's parts of speech, etc. Could I focus on? Donna, you're gonna say?
Maybe direct speech.
So direct speech. Everybody agrees with that? So for report writing or using for the school policy, direct speech. Kira, why your face look like that?
I'm trying to remember.
The thing is, we are
Things
not
from
English. The thing is, we are not English teachers. So
Yes, I remember you did say that. Yes, okay. But then you said modern languages though, Kira, right?
Yes.
So wouldn't you look at the different types of speech in modern languages as well? Direct and indirect, reported speech?
Well, I do lower school, so not really.
Say that again.
I teach lower school Spanish, so I don't really go into that kind of thing direct.
When you say lower school, you're talking about grade 7 to 9?
7 to 9, yes.
Yeah, so what would you focus on for language?
For language, we would focus on verbs, nouns,
You teach that.
communication.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so do you put that in a context?
Yes, yeah. Like in situations.
Right.
Usually we put them in situations.
Okay, so do you teach them how to formulate certain types of sentences?
Yes.
Right. So it could fit in there. That's generally the same idea, except she's saying direct speech, I believe, because of the genre, the type, the way in which the language would be used on a poster for policy rules or in a report.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I don't want you to, so we don't have to get so specific that you get lost in that sense. What I want you to see is that the language use is heavily dependent on the genre and the context. Okay, the language I choose to use and how I choose to structure that language is dependent on the genre and context. Everybody with me and agree on that? Yes? Dharma, you're thinking something.
Yes, I am. Suppose like it's a cartoon.
Yeah.
The best language skill there could be probably broadcasting.
Depends on what you're going to talk about. Yeah, it depends.
So,
a comic strip would be fine for that. You could ask the students to create a comic strip demonstrating what has happened. Yes, and that's fine. The only issue is that you want to ensure that they're using the target language.
Yes.
Right. So you want to use the target language, which would be standard English, and there you'd have register coming up based on what is happening in the comic strip. When they speak to the principal, are they speaking the same way as when they speak to the students? So you're bringing up, yes.
So you talk a different language with your friend.
Yes, you speak differently. Right. Yes.
Right. So the poster would bring up that in the cartoon.
Yeah, you could. But what you're realizing is that the teacher sets that place, that understanding, not the student. Right? Okay. Okay, I think we kind of answered the title inadvertently through what we've been looking at, argumentation or persuasion. This really is an argumentation / persuasion, and I use those words lightly because at tertiary level, argumentation and persuasion are not the same thing. Yeah. So just in case I confuse anybody, but at the secondary level, perhaps CT encourages that because they use the terms interchangeably. But at the tertiary level, students actually get into trouble if they consider them the same thing. All right. So let's look at Hadley and let's look at the role of oral communication. Okay. Opportunities must be provided for students to practice using language in a range of contexts likely to be encountered in the target culture. And the important thing there, which is why hopefully for those of you that have the French, that teach the French and the Spanish, you can utilize the same principles to teach the Spanish and the French, right? The, the, you have to understand what are the various contexts within the target culture. That's important. Those can't be superficial, okay? You can't kind of give them a fantasy deal, an unrealistic idea, because then you're really not teaching them how to function within the context, okay? If they go to the market, for example, and they have to use English in the market, you understand? You have to explain the reality of that of that situation. Exactly, exactly. And you have to validate. For those of you, and Lyra told us before that in Solution they have French Creole as well, and we have the Jamaican Creole here. The reality is that you have to validate their language, because out of colonialism we do have the mindset that the language is inferior to standard English, and so they carry that with them, which prevents them from speaking very often because they're afraid that you're going to in some way correct and embarrass them. Okay, it's amazing how many students I have interviewed, spoken to, even up to the tertiary level, who embarrassment is such a huge thing for them that they will tell you they are not speaking because they're worried about how the teacher is going to react, which tells you that it happens so often, because I'm not fearful of something if it has never happened. It's when I am, I've encountered it either through somebody else or based on my experience.
So it goes back then that we need to let our audience be comfortable.
Yes, certainly.
Because if I'm not comfortable, I'm not comfortable.
Yes, of course. Or you don't want to speak. Who wants to speak if they're not comfortable? Yes, Sonia, you're going to say something.
Spanish.
Yeah.
And
she
would never speak. But when I read her essay, expository essay, she made sense. So I said, come here, Kimberly, why don't you speak English? Miss,
yeah.
I said, can you hear right there? This my children.
Perception of the peers as well. Yeah.
But then everybody makes an attempt to speak English because they're now in college.
Yeah. So it's expected.
But what I find, I didn't find a grade for her, and I was asking, did Kimberly do the exam? But it was a situation where her paper went with another teacher, and I got another paper. And then I eventually found out that she did it, because I kept asking for her, and then they were saying, Miss, she said she not like nobody in the class.
Or probably because she doesn't speak. She's
not. When she goes home, she doesn't communicate orally, but she writes very well. Okay. I'm just saying, when she goes home, she probably feel a misfit to speak English, to practice it, and then when she comes to school, she has to practice it, and then she wants to be in her comfort zone. But she said she don't like the students, but that's not. I don't find that that's
the problem. I get you.
But it's the same but saying no.
And amazingly, tertiary level students also have indicated to me that it's the opposite side as well, that they don't want to feel as though people think that they think highly of themselves. Yes. So they prefer not to speak because they don't want it. Exactly, that's how I felt. Wow. But at this level, you didn't realize that people were still watching that kind of. You thought it was a secondary or, primary to an extent, because at primary, it depends on the environment. Students should be encouraged to express their own meaning. Did I do the middle one? No. Opportunities should be provided for students to practice carrying out a range of functions likely to be necessary in dealing with others in the target culture. Okay, and again, when they teach French and Spanish, that's what ends up happening. They give scenarios and situations, but we don't tend to do that with the teaching of English here. Students should be encouraged to express their own meaning as early as possible after productive skills. Do you know what that means? What are the productive skills? Right. So in other words, whatever you're giving them to produce, right? Whatever you're teaching them to produce. Think of a scenario where you've taught this lovely lesson on whatever element of language, and then you pack it up with activities, your activities, activity after activity, and they have not, throughout the lesson, they have not had the opportunity to use the element of focus, the element of language of focus. They have not had an opportunity to use it for themselves.
So we don't really create scenarios like foreign language where we have
We don't. Not for the
cartoons
teaching.
and
No,
pictures
Take it
and
for granted that
they know it.
Yes,
We ask them to use it based on the hope or the assumption that they know it. And it's not simply a teacher issue. It's a curriculum issue because schools also make that assumption.
Yes, because like curriculum. Give and receive information, just dry them. Give and receive information. So you have to create the scenario for the child to give and receive information.
Right.
But it doesn't.
So, yes, sorry, I haven't been moving around the camera, I just realized. Okay, so it's a very important point. In other words, right after you get that element, right after you have taught that element, the students must have the ability now to personalize it. How can they use it, and how would they use it, and get to know it? Yes.
You don't spend a lot of time teaching, allowing them to get the concept verbosely, so to speak.
Verbatim, just regurgitation, right?
So you allow them to know what the focus is. Bring them into the focus, and then you all just work along with it.
Yeah, because the fact is, if you don't allow them to internalize what they're doing, then the activities you're doing with them become meaningless. Yes, it's connection, really, if we look at it for all of humanity. For everything we do, it's connection that keeps us focused.
They're really exciting when they're really allow them to
Yes.
get into it. And
Yes.
better.
Of course.
For the whole day,
And
they're on
faster.
that topic.
Yes, faster, because it means something to them.
Because I remember one time I had a preposition class, and some days I just feel up.
Yeah.
And I really decided to be a drama person with them. And I tell you, as I mentioned, preposition, they start taking me everything. It's like they're going back in the whole list.
Yeah.
As a who up, who down, who up,
Yes.
So, I mean,
Because you establish meaning.
Yes.
Purpose. Good.
And everyone just like that.
Yeah, but you have to pull them back in. Yes. And I think that's why most people run from these types of approaches. It's the fear of losing control. But as I was saying to a group of students, you have to determine what kind of teacher you're going to be. Yes. I know that if I leave a classroom and I've given all of this stuff, and at the end of the day, the students have not internalized it, I sit down there and wonder, because you know your thing already. The reality is that teaching is not about you. I'm trying to remember Wilbert Makishi said, if at the end of the day, the students have not learned, then you have not taught. Yes. And that's a tough one to swallow, but it's pretty true. All right, so opportunities must be provided for active communicative interaction among students. Okay, now I know when you say communicative and interaction, you would think, well, that has to be active, but believe it or not, that's not always the case. All right, sometimes students end up being recipients rather than participants, spectators watching rather than participants being involved in. And creative language practice must be encouraged in the proficiency-oriented classroom as well. Okay, and that's the oral proficiency-oriented classroom. So story writing and poetry, and get them into the creative uses of language, not just the regular everyday uses of language, and you'll be surprised what you can pull out of them that way. Use of the imagination is powerful. So in developing oral language proficiency, we have to provide meaningful speaking practice. The teachers ought to determine, at least in some way, what range of levels, and I'm going to go into that now. Now, range of levels of students. Where are our students? That's what you have to determine. You come into your class and you're trying to determine now, where is the student? And I'm talking about teaching a group of 45 students sometimes, teaching a group of 20, you could be teaching a group of 10. It doesn't matter, but you just need to know that all of those learners are not on the same level, right? And if you're just teaching as though you're only concerned about the syllabus and the content, then at the end of the day, you're going to feel it, okay? Are they at a novice level, an intermediate level, an advanced level? Into which category would they fall, right? And actually, that's pretty much the average classroom is that they have a mixture with, unfortunately, very few at the advanced level, okay? This will help you to determine the variety of your activities. What types of activities are you carrying one type of activity each time? And so you're only catering to one type of learner, okay? And you're trying to create this variety to ensure that they acquire and use the oral language communicative skills effectively. Now let's look at these. Sure. I want us to look at these, and we're going to do some work on them, right, for a little bit. I want you to look at them carefully. I can switch now? I won't say anything. I won't give my opinion yet. I want to hear what you all have to say first. Now we're going to look at the language techniques that are necessary for the novice, for the intermediate, for the advanced, and for the superior. All right? So just watch us now, right? Everybody can see Kerry, you're good to go. Kira and Leroy, you're good to go. All right, Vernon, I hope you're there. I've been asking for you for a while. I'm seeing you might mute it, so I'm hoping that's a good thing. Welcome. Okay, great to have you back. We weren't hearing you for a while. Okay, let's look at the novice. So I'm going to look at particular language techniques with the novice. I'm looking at personalized questions. Everybody's clear on what those are, right? Good. Personalized completions. So in other words, I give them something to do. They have to complete it, but they're dealing with focusing on themselves. Okay, their experiences. Personalized agree-disagree situations, and that could take, different formats, but again, it's personal. You notice the amount of personalized, okay? Sentence builders, word associations, group puzzles, surveys and polls, conversation cards, all right? Now, allow that to sink in a little as we move over to the intermediate, because where you begin to see what is really important is when you begin to look at the differences among the four groups, okay? In the intermediate stage, I move. You notice the personalized has somehow vanished. You notice that?
Yeah.
Why do you think that's the case? Lyra, let me ask you. Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think personalized questions, personalized completions, personalized agree-disagree situations have suddenly taken a diminished role when we move to the language for the intermediate?
Because at this point, there is active communication taking place. The ideas, not only for themselves, but within a group context,
right?
A situational context.
Yeah. Anything else? Because it is easier, isn't it, when you start with me? If you think of a psychologist speaking to a child, yes, it's easier when you start with me. I can figure out, oh, that's what you mean, miss. Oh, and I go from there because you're with me. When I have to now critically think of outside of myself, exactly, Carrie. When I have to think of outside of myself, then there becomes the need to pull on more language skills in order to help me now to present whatever information I'm going to present. So let's look at the intermediate. We have dialogue story adaptation. We have paired interviews. So there's no collaboration on a different kind of level. Because remember, when you're interviewing, some of the onus falls on me, not just the partner. Okay? Social interaction activities. It means there's a little level of maturity there that allows me to interact with other people. Yes? Group consensus, problem solving, storytelling, which means that I've moved to an abstract level is okay now. Do you realize? Look at sentence builders and storytelling. Do you see the difference in skills required there? Storytelling, I have to move to a little bit of abstract. Everything there is not going to be concrete because I'm imagining. I'm thinking of things outside of the concrete world of reality. Okay? Role players, giving definitions. Do you see that? So when you come to ask a student, so students, what is a noun? Are you recognizing that your novice students may not be able to answer that question? Okay. Elaboration, the intermediate can do, but what the novice is still stuck on things like conversation cards, which help to stimulate the language skill, the learning of that language skill. Yes. So a conversation, I think the modern languages, persons would know it more. Yeah. Go ahead. Right.
Because at first we start with sentences by saying I am a girl, I'm a boy, I'm this, I'm that, and then you move it from I to you, we. Oh,
right.
So
stages.
Right. It makes it very easier for you to go on to the next. Now what do you call them? Okay, the next.
The next one. Concept units, right? Okay, concept, right. Right. So it takes in stages, but it also is teaching them as they're using it. So they're not reliant on their own, information to create the scenarios. Okay. Yes.
Basically, sometimes it's basically like for a friend, it's basically if you look at the syllabus from grade 7 to grade 13 and 12, it's the same thing as you said before.
Yes,
It
just
builds
building.
on your knowledge because it's the same thing you're learning from first form to third
Exactly.
grade 13, but it's
The
more
levels.
advanced
Yes.
words. So you
Yes.
talk about the family, you talk about first father, father, sister, mother. Then you talk about the units, how many persons are in the family, what does mommy do, what does daddy do, and so on.
But how you end up talking about them changes as you move up the level. Okay. All right. Kira and Lyra, especially because I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that. So Shauna teaches French as well, which is why she was able to step in. Is there anything you want to add, or we can continue?
We didn't hear what you were saying. We can't hear clearly.
That was so powerful. Well, she was explaining the conversation cards and how they would be used when she would be teaching French. And she was talking about the fact that as we move, though we may have the same topics, as we move from grade 7 to 13 with the students, that they may have the same topics, but how they have to represent themselves through the language becomes more advanced clearly as they go up, even though they may be still talking about the same topics. Okay, that's unfortunate. Is it that when the person's here speak, you're not able to hear? Am I the only one you're able to hear?
Yes.
Clearly, yes.
And we hear Kerry.
We hear Kerry very clearly,
Yes,
but
I
the rest
hear,
of the
you hear me,
Jamaican,
but you don't hear them. That's interesting. I wonder why.
we hear them, but not clearly.
Clearly.
We hear Vernon.
Maybe I just have to get them to talk up a little. Okay. All right, the ladies, when we speak in, let's try to speak up. Not sure. I have no idea where the mic is, so that's the problem. Okay. All right, let's look at language techniques for the advanced. We go back to a personalized true or false, okay, which is very interesting, okay. Chain stories, you know what chain stories are, right? Stories that are interlocked and connected and you keep, like Chinese telephone idea, right? Group picture stories, so you know what they're doing there. We get some of that with CSEC as well, with summary writing and short story writing. Guided narrations, debates, reactions to opinion questions, so questions that are soliciting their opinions. What did you think of? In your mind, what is? Okay? Situations with complications. So are you seeing the way in which the language set is changing? The skills that are being demanded of these learners become more complex as we move. Language techniques for the superior. All right? Okay. So we were just there a while ago, right? Persuasion is actually considered to be something that can be more effectively done by a language learner who is seen as falling in the superior category. Paraphrasing, okay? I hope when you're starting, I hope this is sinking and you're starting to realize something in you should be going, oh, so that's why they're not, right? Because paraphrasing is something we ask students to do all the time, not recognizing that it's not a skill that's easily acquired by particular learners. They have to be advanced or superior to paraphrase, because paraphrase means you're internalizing what has been said by somebody else, understanding what it is, then putting it together with your own meaning, your own context, your own style, and then reproducing, having done all of that. That's a serious skill set. Exactly. And then when, for example, what grades do you teach, Lyra?
9 to 11.
Okay, so you're okay, and Kira teaches the lower end. Okay, so for example, let's say Kira has somebody 7 to 9, and she has a particular orientation, okay, and she has not moved them from this novice point, not scaffolded them, and you get them at the upper level, okay, but you get them at the upper level when they're novices. Are you with me? But your syllabus is not speaking to novices. Your syllabus is speaking to persons who are at the advanced or superior. You understand the implications of that? Which is why teacher, yes, go ahead.
No, we're listening.
No, we're listening.
Yes, so I'm saying you can understand therefore that the teacher, that's why you can't be dependent on a syllabus only for the construction of your class, for your class grade. You have to know the students. Yes. Okay? All right. Sociolinguistic competence, which is one of the factors of communicative competence that we would have looked at last week. Sociolinguistic competence building activities. Sociolinguistic would mean what? Yes, so the whole language is used in a social or cultural context. And that's so things that will build their ability to use language within such context. Description of objects and processes in a detailed manner. Again, we're seeing this, we will see this on a CSEC exam, for example. The first section of the CSEC language exam could ask them to do things like that, depending on how it's phrased with the summary writing. Okay? And you not only have role play now, you have role play with complications. In other words, problem solving becomes a major tester of your ability to use language. Okay? So what I really wanted you to see when you looked at the spread of these four is understand why sometimes it doesn't work for us. Seriously, it doesn't work for us. We get the learners, we have done everything possible, right? We have tried, we have created even the context, but because we're not zooming in on where the different learners are through the different activity types, then we end up in problems. Carrie, you wanted to say something?
Okay, now what if you have a multi-level class?
That's what I was going to say, yes.
Now, is it that you prepare a lesson plan for 4 different activities because of the range of language proficiency in that class? Because you may have a novice, and you may have the intermediate and the other all in one classroom.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So no, it doesn't mean that you create it all the time. I think the first thing we have to start with, the first premise we have to start with, is if I'm really going to be effective at what I'm doing, planning my lesson cannot simply be based on my syllabus, it has to be based on my class. Okay? Where they are. I can use multi-level activities, but awareness is a big thing as well. I can know, for example, that in the 3rd row in my classroom of 40 students, that person does not read well. Okay? So when I give an activity that involves reading, and I have everybody in the class reading, and answering, that person will not receive one thing from the class. So my awareness will cause me to plug something into the activity, which has people explaining aspects of what they read, so that that learner can pick up, understand, and participate in the class. Are you with me? So I'm not, and I see myself as a teacher clearly, so I'm not in any way trying to be unrealistic and saying that you cater to every single learner inside the classroom in terms of their varied needs. Specifically, no, we can't manage that. We can't deal with activities for each learner. We can deal with activities for the types of learners in our classroom. Okay, so it's an awareness that informs my lesson planning. Okay, so whatever activity I do, there's no group that should be left out, Carrie. That's what I'm trying to say. Whether it's multi-level, where it's just me calling on that person while I'm teaching to make sure that person is with me, whether it's how I arrange my group so that I put 2 stronger students with this particular student, whether it's that I put that student to do a particular task based on the skill set. Because remember, if I have caused that student to not feel a part of the class, then it's all over. For whatever reason, if the student does not feel as though he or she matters, whatever I'm teaching, it's over for that person. Okay? And I think that's the bottom line. And we have that problem up to this level. And students will say, well, you know what? I did try to speak once, but I recognize that this teacher is really not interested in what, this teacher is more interested in trying to get through X, Y, Z. And they'll just tune you out. All right? And remember too that we're not perfectionists in that sense, and that we have real circumstances, including our own lives. So it's about trying to find a balance, but it's not getting to the point where we just teach. We're just teaching, okay? Content, throwing out content, and our learners are not learning.
You have a more
So, hold on, let me get Sonia in the picture. Sonia is saying something.
No, this is like a
Yeah.
I would say you as a teacher have a moral responsibility as well.
Yes.
To incorporate that student into the lesson.
Yes, of course. Everybody heard that?
Yes. And I was just referring when
Did you say yes? Yes?
when my colleagues were thinking that I was sleeping.
Yes.
I was just saying, referring to this research.
Body caring and powering teacher people. Yes, yes. So teacher education as well. Yes.
It's a similar thing here.
Yes.
With how the teachers respond to how the students respond to how the teachers make them feel.
Yes, and I think we have to, the reality is, as I said, you can determine what type of teacher you're going to be, but the reality is just as you are human, your students are human. And you have to humanize teaching. You have to you know, it's very rigid, traditional, and very old time for us to be focusing merely on trying to tick off on a syllabus instead of engage our learners. You know, if we're going to go critical thinking, if we're going to have persons stop calling us an intellectual ghetto here, right? We're going to have to move towards a classroom where students are actively thinking for themselves, and they don't get that by us throwing everything at them. They get that by us involving them based on where they are, okay, and moving them to another level. All right, so let's move from this point here. Here's what I wanted to do. I just want to make sure that everybody has a sense of before, because when we leave this, you know, things are going to get deeper and deeper, okay? and I want to make sure, so I want you, let's not necessarily go into the list. It says each person is to list a each person is to list a traditional activity involving the teaching of comprehension or the teaching of types of sentences. Now, let's just focus there for a minute. I want you to give an activity that the typical traditional situation, and we've done this before, so this shouldn't be brand new, but we're going to add an element to it now. Think of teaching of comprehension or the teaching of types of sentences. One of the two you choose. And I want you to think of what a traditional activity would look like. A language as structure classroom. What would a traditional activity look like? And just jot that down quickly. I'm giving you like 2 minutes now because this is supposed to be flying to the top of your heads, right? Okay, with all your engagement with the material and things, you know. So just do that quickly for me. Just one traditional activity. Let me hear what everybody comes up with, and then we'll go on to the second part. Last week, so I'm wondering what this is now. All right, I'm coming to you. Go for it. I am going to start with Shantae, actually. Despite the fact that she has looked at me with raised eyebrows. All right, so we're gonna go through. I'll just call your name and ask you to list your traditional activity. Persons that Mona, remember, I'm asking you to speak a little louder so that everybody can hear.
Teaching comprehension. I don't know if it was given the particular way of teaching comprehension. If it was
just tell me what you have and we'll work with what you have here.
Comprehension. Teaching comprehension would probably be presenting the students with a passage to read and questions to answer,
Okay.
and encourage them and teach them how to search for clues in answering the question, searching for clues and keywords in answering the question.
Okay, did everybody hear that?
No, no.
No. One more time. One more time.
In teaching comprehension, my traditional activity would be presenting the students with the group activity of the comprehension itself in written format, having them read it together as a group, and then from there taking it to imparting my knowledge to the students as to how to search for clues and keywords in answering the comprehension question.
Okay, was that any better?
Yes, yes.
Very good. Okay, so I've turned the computer as well. So okay. All right. Ashley. I'm finding her. There she is. Okay. Traditional activity with whatever you choose.
The same thing, you'll just be handing out a sheet of paper or page 24 with a random passage, answer the question, and then
Here ended. Yes. Okay. All right. Great. Darla.
Same thing.
Right.
Read the passage, then answer the question which follows.
Everybody did comprehension. Okay. All right. Coming to you. I come into you. I come into you. Let me just pull them in. All right, Carrie. Carrie.
Okay. I guess I would give them, well, traditional.
Yeah.
Find some vocabulary word that they may not be used to. Give them the vocabulary word.
Okay.
And tell them to sit quietly.
I like it.
Read
Okay.
quietly and answer quietly.
Okay. She said, tell them to sit quietly and answer quietly. You're saying? I mean, you carry on more traditional. Okay. You're making your point.
traditionally I exchange the papers and everybody marks to teach them.
Oh, did you hear that? Carrie.
Choice comprehension.
Let me find Ashley. Okay, did you hear what she said, Carrie? You heard what Ashley said? She said she was just putting the icing on your cake, right? So she was saying, and to just top it off, you just have the students exchange papers so that the teacher does not have to do any marking whatsoever. Okay. Multiple choice comprehension. You guys are horrible. Okay. All right, Sonia, you cannot look like that on the screen. Okay. All right, Sonia is up here. No, I don't want interactive yet. I want to check what, because you're going to have to know what we have moved from. So let's hear the traditional. Go ahead. What?
Well, I think probably if I say, no, I was thinking convention because of how she started. What I was thinking, I don't know if this is traditional, but bring the same passage to class, have supply each student with a passage, have them read it aloud, probably in unison, or I could have this section of the class read the first paragraph.
My heart, ouch. Okay.
Then read the next paragraph.
Yes.
And then probably do a little discussion after. And then we have them answer
the questions. Well, the fact that you're laughing, guys, I'm hoping that this means that you would never really think of doing this, okay? I'm thinking you're laughing at it because of how ridiculous. How absolutely ridiculous. But yes, no, that's what I'm saying. So that is okay. So that's, yes, it is. Yes, I mean, the discussion is not bad. It's quite fine to have a discussion, but the way in which the discussion is couched in that situation would have been traditional. Once you have the teacher leading, the teacher doing, the teacher giving the instruction, everything is centered around the teacher. The students are really not doing anything actively, no active listening, no active speaking, nothing. Then yes, we get to traditional, which is what I'm trying to pull out to ensure that everybody can visualize what a traditional, you must be able to, what a traditional situation is like. Vernon, we're coming to you.
Well, I did types of sentences, so I have beside each of the following sentences. Right, D for declarative, I for imperative, INT for interrogative, and EX for exclamatory.
Okay, you did an acronym.
Pardon me?
You were doing an acronym, is that right?
Right, right.
But then that's not traditional.
No.
Right.
No.
I want a traditional activity for types of sentences. What would somebody give?
No, man, it's traditional in the sense that they are just reading the sentences and identifying each of the types of sentences.
Okay, so let me allow you to go again then. I thought you were, okay, it's okay. I think I misunderstood. Go again.
It says, beside each of the following sentences, write D for declarative, I am for imperative, INT for interrogative, and EX for exclamatory.
Yes. Okay, I got you. I thought you were doing something different with that. Okay, yes, that's perfect. That's definitely traditional. So Shauna, you were saying that's what you have as well?
Yeah.
Same, literally the same thing that he just said?
Well, not literally.
Tell me what you.
Write a sentence, give them a sheet of paper or a textbook and to a certain page and read the sentences and write beside whether it's explanatory
Or what kind of declarative or okay. All right. Okay. All right. So watch where we're going now, ladies and gentlemen. Right? I know I haven't. Carrie, I didn't come. Yes, I did at the start. Okay. Let's look at oral orientation. So not just general CLT now, not just general functional now. Okay. Let's look at the same activity that you listed, the same traditional activity that you listed. I want you to tell me how could the activity that you have given for the traditional be made more interactive and support an oral orientation. So I'm giving you 2 minutes. I want you to transform the traditional activity you have listed there. So the Lord help you if you did a really, really intensely traditional activity. But I want you to transform it into an interactive activity which supports the oral communication ideas that we have gone through thus far. What I'm going to do is go back with the slides so that you see some of the features again of the oral communication. Let's go here. All right, so here we go.
Opportunities.
Darwin, did you give me yours? You didn't give me yours,
Yes,
you did?
read the passage.
Oh, right, okay. No, miss. You need a break? Well, because we agreed that the break would be at 6:30. That's why we push. And it's harder for them. It's easier for you to take a break than it is, I think, for those. Yeah, and they're like, but actually, you could always bring the coffee.
I know.
I can take it.
Yes, just take it. Next time.
Yeah, if I had the time, that's exactly what I said. If I had more time before the class, I could put some of the knickknacks. All right, so I'm going to pull everybody back together. And let's press from there. No, I don't want to go there yet. Okay, so let's hear what you have. Carrie, can I start with you, please?
Okay, well, I have two things. Well, in order to have a discussion on the reading material, so the kids could read first, and then we could have a discussion, almost like a Socratic discussion, where based on the issues presented in the comprehension, they would formulate their own questions and move on So it would be, it might go beyond the actual comprehension itself, but still dealing with whatever issue the comprehension is dealing with. And then the other thing I have is
Wait before you go. So the class, the whole class discussion would be based on the issues that would come out in the comprehension passage. So if we had teenage pregnancy, then the class would be talking about teenage pregnancy. Is that correct? Yes?
right.
Right.
But you using the Socratic seminar style.
Yes, got you. All right.
And then the other thing I have is for them to create a rap or music based on the comprehension.
All right. And the only thing I would say there is you get something specific out of the comprehension rather than just the comprehension passage as a whole. Yeah? Okay. So just like you just said the issue a while ago, it's very important to give them that direction because we assume that they can find that direction themselves when we don't. So we leave it too wide, they may go off where we'd like them to, the path that we'd like them to be on. All right. Okay, Sonia?
I was dovetailing on that. What I was thinking is, so we have established the topic that we're going to be teaching.
Yeah.
Right? And we could probably go to the class without the topic. And I would say, which song I'd ask for them to, based on the topic of discussion, do you know a popular song that we can look at and analyze the content? Which song would I allow them to choose the song?
Right.
Song, poem, short story, film, whatever. I use new media as part of the whole thing in the classroom. So whether you listen to the radio, the thing that is out now, you can address the issue. And then from there, we'll have a discussion and then I'd have them answer the questions.
From the passage?
From the passage, right. I structure questions from the passage and have them answer that.
Okay, anybody wants to comment on that? Hopefully you heard Lewa and Kira, you heard what she was saying?
Yes. Yes.
Yes?
That she would use probably a song or something in the media.
Yes. Yeah. New media forms. Yeah, so she would utilize that and allow the discussion to be connected to that, she's saying. YouTube, for example, is one of the forms that she could use. Okay?
Yes.
Yes? And I think the important thing there would be to structure that, which we're not going to get into now, but the important thing with any activity, remember that the activity type can be good, but if we don't structure it properly and put it in the lesson properly, then it's useless. Okay, Vernon, can I go to you quickly?
All right. Actually, I'm not finished, but this is the basic idea is that we're still looking at sentences.
Right.
So they put themselves in a group of 4, and they are given 4 sentences, and the person who starts is the
just clarify, 4 sentence types or 4 sentences?
4 sentences.
Okay.
Right, so they're given 4 sentences, and the person who begins correlates to the number of sentences that they're at. So the first sentence, number 1 reads a declarative sentence.
Yeah.
The second person converts it orally to an interrogative sentence. Person 3 converts the sentence to an imperative sentence.
Okay.
Converts the sentence to an exclamatory.
Yeah.
So that's the first sentence, and then now the second sentence, it is the second person who reads. So everybody gets a chance to read,
right.
Everybody gets a chance to convert, everybody gets a chance. So yeah, and the group can discuss and modify, fix the sentence and arrive at a reasonable answer.
That's great. The bottom line with that is that it would need to be couched in context so that the sentences are not all over the place. You're not just arbitrarily talking about a room and then the next minute the beach, and that it's right. So it's focused on a particular topic so at the end the students also get something out of the topic. And then of course an extended activity would be based on all that they would have heard and participated in, then they move to writing about it, yes, or presenting something, utilizing the 4 sentence types. That would have been good. So that's a great activity. Okay, lovely. Leah?
Okay. Well, I did comprehension.
Yes.
So I said probably I can start off the class by introducing a topic, possibly on the comprehension passage that I might want them to focus on, but don't bring it in one time. So probably introduce the topic like a narrow escape.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Brainstorm and ask them, what do they think when they hear narrow escape? What comes to mind? And jot down their brainstorming idea,
Very good. Yes.
suggestions and whatnot. And then I will put them into pairs and ask them to spend a few minutes to speak about any encounter in their life or situation where they have had a narrow escape.
Yes.
Okay, and then I'll ask them to share afterwards. Not everybody, but some of them to share to the class. And when they really grasp based on the situations that people have brought about, when they grasp what really a narrow escape is,
yes,
through the discussions and whatnot in the class, then we will go to the probably a short excerpt of a narrow escape.
Okay.
And then I will have them participate in a writing activity where they will have to answer questions, well, comprehension based on the passage.
Okay. Anybody has a problem with that? Is that all good?
No.
Yes? Very good, actually. All right. Kira. Pardon me.
Okay, for my activity, I would probably ask the students to get into small groups, and after they've read, I'm probably giving them a passage to read in the beginning. And after they've read the passage, ask them to come up with an alternate ending. Probably will be like a short story, something happened, and some events led to a particular, like a climax.
Yeah.
So then I would ask them to, after they've read the passage, to come up with their own ending. How could that situation have been different? How could the story have ended differently? And then they would share it to the class.
So, okay, let me ask a quick question, Kira. And this is an open question, so I'm not attaching any opinion to it. I just want the answer. Okay. Do you think that the person who gave them the questions do you think that the students would have acquired the same skills from a teacher who gave them questions that they would not acquire from you based on their needing to create a new ending to that story? Please tell me you understand, Sarah.
Let's repeat the question, please.
Okay, so I'm saying, okay, so some person stated that at the end of all the scaffolding, they would have given the questions, right, for the comprehension passage.
Okay, yes.
And you have given, what your task is that the students should create an alternate ending. And I'm asking you, do you think you would have taught the students or allowed the students to acquire some of the same skills that the students would have acquired had they answered comprehension questions?
I think so.
Okay, can you tell me, yes, and can you tell me, I'm not, that's why I said don't try to put an opinion, because I'm not saying that you shouldn't. I want you to know, what skills would they be able to acquire with the ending?
With the ending, they would learn.
Yes, thinking comprehension now. Remember, we're thinking comprehension, right? Yes.
Because if you understood, then you could paraphrase. You can put the whole thing into your own words, and then based on what you understood happened, then you can say, well, maybe that could have been, it could have turned out this way instead.
Exactly. Okay. So see, I'm just playing devil's advocate, because what I wanted to get you to understand is that for the student to come up with an ending that is effective or would be considered worthy, they'd have to understand that passage. Yes. And it's the same thing. So in other words, it's not that the questions are bad. It's not that the questions are bad. It's not that you shouldn't give questions, but I'm saying there are other ways sometimes, especially if you know, sometimes you reflect and you say, okay, I keep giving them that same thing over and over. It's not that it's not useful, but you'd like to give them something else. So that is another way to give them something that will challenge them, cause them to acquire the same skill set, but in a different way. So that's that. Okay. Who's got knowing? Sasha. You see, you wouldn't even tell me, yes. Yeah, so what would your alternate? Trying to get this, yeah. dialogue where you have like a situation and response, so somebody will probably ask something, and so that way I'll see the different types of sentences coming through. Okay, and the students would have been given that instruction clearly. Yes. That's nice. Okay. Everybody heard that?
Yes.
All right. No? You didn't hear that? Boy, Session, Lyra and Kira don't seem to hear. One more time. Dialogue. Western Jamaican Gabas heard, but St. Lucia not here. Alright, I will give them situation and responses and dialogue, so the different types of sentences will come out. Did you hear that? You serious? We need to have, what's that thing on the TV? Closed caption. we need to have some caption thing going on. Okay. What she's saying is she would give a dialogue. Yes? She would provide a dialogue. She's looking at types of sentences, and they'd have to utilize the types of sentences in the dialogue. And of course, you can't get better than that with an oral communicative task. Okay? So in other words, she's pulling them straight into conversation, having them use the language, use it in dialogue format. But the good thing is it would be in writing, so they'd also get to see the dialogue in work. Okay? All right. let's continue. Shante, did I ask you anything? Gosh, I'm counting as I go along in my mind, but I'm not counting.
For me, I think pretty much my colleagues have covered it, but I would ensure that the paragraph that I have chosen for my students is one that they will find interesting, one that they can relate to, one that they could, one with a moral.
Yes.
Or a good storyline where they could learn something from it.
Yeah.
Then pair them, or depending on how large the class is, like one of my classes is like 45, 46 students, put them in groups, have them share their ideas, you know, their understanding of what they read and how much they comprehend, how much they understand what they read. And then after that, do a group discussion.
Based on the passage and
what I think I would do, what I've done before, is have the comprehension questions that we're doing in an oral session.
Yes.
I put the questions out on script on paper and have them choose and make it an interactive session where one group answers whatever group answers.
Response to the question. That's right. Oh, okay.
And, you know, it works.
Yeah, man.
It works.
That's nice.
They remember, they learn.
Yes, and they're probably listening more, so nobody wants to get it wrong. Okay, all right. I'm watching Ashley and Sonia here. I'm feeling very keen. Let me see if what time do we have now? Yeah, so we can just work for the half hour. Ashley, you guys survive for the half hour? Wow. Okay, all right. Let's just move into quickly because I don't want to prolong any topic that's not necessary. So you know, as usual, you can go back through the PowerPoints for anything that I would have, run through quickly. Anything that I think you can catch very easily without us needing to discuss it, then I'm going to run through quite quickly. So a major part of oral communication is going to be listening in the language use classroom. And that's important because persons don't tend to see listening as a very important part, but it's extremely important. It sets the base for which students acquire a lot of the information. If you think about a baby acquiring oral communication skills, the baby starts off by listening, picking up based on what he or she hears, okay? So we can increase what our students clearly understand and can discriminate as different from the vernacular by developing their listening skills. Our own understanding of both codes must also be secure. Please understand that. Our understanding of the Creole is just as important as our understanding of standard English, right? It's not something we think about, but it's important because if the language user predominantly uses Creole and you can't understand the Creole, then there's going to be a problem, okay? Especially if you're making up your lovely face, okay? And you know, what was that? Can you speak English? That kind of a response, then clearly they'll have a problem. So let's look at active listening. One of the situations in which we listen best is when we have to do something immediately with the information we receive. So don't just have them sitting there. When you think of a situation where they're listening, the way that they will move with that process or active listening is for you to give them something to do. Why are they listening? What's the purpose of this listening moment, this listening process, this listening activity? Okay, we're not going to do that. Okay, so one of the purposes of listening, we listen to set the tone. Yes, we listen to figure things out, the background, the mood. We listen for aesthetic appreciation. You know, going to bed, you might listen to some nice instrumental music. Or on a Saturday morning, if you're cleaning up the place, you might put on something springy. Okay. You know, we listen to critically assess as well. Okay, you're listening to each other, especially in this class, to figure out, does that make sense? Is that something I want to take on? That kind of thing. And to gain detailed information. When you really get engaged in listening, you're not just listening for vague, general pieces of information. You're trying to get very specific details. Okay. So those are the purposes of listening. Now, if you look at the last two really apply to us and what we're doing with oral communication. Okay, the first two tend not to be utilized so heavily in the classroom, but the last two certainly do. Critical evaluative listening. When we use this to note the language of the speaker, the word, the syntax. Persons respond to you according to the type of standard English you use, but you realize that if you take out a few words and if you change up the way you speak using the English, yes, if you use different registers, then they respond to you accordingly. If I use informal language, they respond to me one way. If I use very formal language, they respond to me in a particular way. All right. Determine the reason why, the beginning of problem solving, distinguish fact from fiction. So when we listen to try to figure things out. All right. And of course, this is giving you a clue into what we should be doing in the language classroom when we utilize or try to get students to acquire the benefits of this skill. We use listening to draw inferences. Agreed? All right. To make judgments. I can't really make a judgment call unless I've actually listened to what you've said. Research to find specific detailed answers, interpret idioms and unusual language. That's when we really have to listen. Okay, the person is speaking in a way that we're not used to hearing. Even if standard English is being utilized, I'm utilizing a slang, a jargon, a type of idiom that you're not really used to hearing. And this, again, is important to second language learners. Yes, because I'm trying to think of one now. I do a volunteer class for an inner city group with CSEC English 8. And there are times when they will be just in the middle of the conversation, a slang comes out and I can't stop them at this point because they're into, but it's affected my ability to comprehend what comes after it. Okay, and so there are ways in which sometimes because of what the person says, and which is why I say that second language learners, when we teach second language learners, it's important to try to interpret these idioms, just plain ask them. Yeah. It should be adjusted. Sorry, Ashley was asking about the AC. It should be able to be adjusted based on what you have there. It is. And also listen to determine bias. Okay? All this time. Information focused listening. We also use listening to follow directions. Okay? I obviously have a challenge with that. If you give me the best directions in the world, I will still get lost. Okay? So, if everybody's like that, then you understand. We use this to elicit specific items of information. So you're pulling specific from the general, follow a sequence of ideas. The conjunctions, the fillers, the signals, we determine what to put in based on what we have heard and what we would like to see based on what we have heard. Okay? Information focused still, identifying the main idea. That's very popular. You should know that one by heart. Right? Exams certainly test it a lot. Various exams use that. Analyze text structure. A story is different from a descriptive piece, is different from persuasive writing, etc. So we listen to the language use in the various genres. Okay. We also listen, and you notice the word baggage. We also listen, whether we like to admit it or not, with the baggage of our experience. Okay, so exactly. Yeah. So in other words, I have a particular perception, and I'm hearing you. Yeah. Speak. I'm hearing what you're saying, but I'm not necessarily going to go there. Exactly. So I'm not really listening, and then sometimes the baggage of our experience, very similar to what we're looking at with psychological factors last week. The baggage of our experience is that I believe what I believe anyway, so I'm not really listening. Okay? So we know that happens. Teachers need to develop skills in selecting from the basket of experiences that children will bring to the classroom, and this is very important. Most of the time, and okay, if I'm the only one in here, because I know when I started teaching, I was highly traditional, thinking I was the best teacher in the world, being highly traditional. But the truth is, we don't take from the basket of their experiences. We take from the basket of our experiences very often. And, you know, which is true too, but even better for us, right? I mean, the truth is, are we really in tune with what their experiences are? And their experiences aren't necessarily the same as our experiences were when we were their age. Okay, so that's something that you also need to work on, to look at. Yes. Any questions? Vernon, you alright?
Yes.
I'm following. I
Just
muted
check
it.
it there. Alright, because you see, I can't see you. You have to work on the camera thinking of Vernon. I can see everybody else. I can see when Lyra jump out, and I can see when Kira jump off. And
I'm working on it.
where's Carrie gone? Carrie's gone. As I said that, she left. Anyway, I'm sure it's a technical issue there. Alright. You see her coming up?
Hello?
Alright, hold on. Just forgive me for this for a minute. But alright.
It's regarding the baggage.
Yes.
I was thinking, I remember in college I was doing Spanish course.
Yes.
And I in high school I learned from my Spanish teacher. I loved her in high school.
Yes.
And she some things that she taught, I liked how she did it.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to college and I was being taught the same thing in a different way, I wasn't listening to what was being taught. No. Because I said, I learned this already.
What are you teaching me? And I don't like it. Yeah.
Any other way.
Yes. But yes, but that is part of the baggage. And remember, they carry baggage as well, right? It's just that we end up having the control or thinking we're in control. And so ours is a bit more imposing, I think, than theirs. So that's, yeah, and that's an excellent example. Yes, go ahead. Question? Comment? Yeah, sure, Donald.
Yes, but the point is,
yes,
if we are aware of the baggages, it means therefore that our children are not learning certain.
If we carry those baggages in, yes, that's the point, and that's why I mentioned it.
So the blockage, we're teaching and we're pushing,
and there's a big block.
Right.
Yeah.
So we need to hear their baggage.
Yeah. Well, yes, which I call baskets. Remember?
Yes.
Yes. So we have our baggage. Okay. Our baggage is when I come in with certain perceptions already about what I believe with this topic or whatever. There's the baskets of experiences, because clearly, you know, mine is an issue, but they are allowed to carry those in, and then we can try and figure out where we need to go with them.
And at times they are quite insistent to listen.
Yes. And usually, I mean, well, I do it with my children, certainly. If I hear my son stop and say, well, you're not listening, then I have to draw back. You have to kind of realize, okay, well, maybe I'm actually not listening, because you know, sometimes we want to get out so much to them, and we want to utilize the time so quickly that it becomes a problem, because we impose ourselves really, and no, I have to get this done now. So can't deal with that question another time. Okay, all right. Ways to offer feedback. I've skipped out some things for a minute. Ways to offer feedback during oral communication tasks. I think this is very important, and I want us to deal with it before you leave. So that's why I brought it up now. Let me try and get this up here. Trying desperately to get it somewhere where it will not be a problem. Oh, okay. Okay. So how do we offer feedback? Now, it's very important that we understand that what we say while they are speaking can either encourage them to speak or can shut them down.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. So self-correction with teacher helping. What do you think that is looking at? This is in my classroom now. They're talking. What would this type of feedback look like?
Why would you say that?
Why would I say that? Wait. Let's get through that. Okay. All right. Wrong side.
If somebody said the villain is the Tom is a horrible person.
Yes.
And maybe maybe the pastor has not suggested that.
Right.
You want to probe them to try and justify it.
Perfect. Yes. So the idea there is that you know that it's not the right answer, but your expression doesn't suddenly go to, oh my goodness, okay? And at the same time, and verbally, you don't try to express something that's going to shut them down. You then probe, which I think that's the word you used a while ago. You probe. You want to find out how did they arrive at that answer, and then lead them, of course, to the correct answer based on what you have. Okay. Everybody with that? Carrie's still not back. I don't know what happened there. Okay, thanks. Okay, queuing. This is where the teacher provides options, which give the student an understanding of the correct answer, but the teacher's providing options. So what do you think that? What's an example of that? What context clues or hints? Yes, very good. Okay, so right there, but when you give the context clues and hints, you're giving more than one. You're not giving the right answer only.
No.
Right. Okay. So you allow them, which is why it's queuing. Exactly. Okay. And providing your own answer. So the teacher actually offers her own answer to a particular question posed to the student to help the student to hear how the language works. So there is a place where the teacher could actually provide his or her own answer. But it's why are you doing it? What's the aim? If it is that you want the student, like you're saying, no, listen to this answer and tell me what you think. Blah, 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 blah. Okay? Yes, go ahead.
Like yesterday I had a situation from a student. They wanted to know what a parcel is.
Yes.
So they had the thing to do wherein you're writing a letter.
What grade is that?
Grade 4.
Yeah, okay.
You're writing a letter and you are going to send a parcel to your mother who lives in New York. So the parcel includes a gift, some graduation pictures, and your report card. So they were filling out a form. So they said, Miss, what is a parcel? So I was
trying to find out.
Yes. So I had my lunch kit and I said, okay, this is my lunch kit. And within my lunch kit, I have what is in there. And they started to say, oh, a parcel is a container. You understand? They never really said a bag, a box. So they said something that can hold something.
Right. Okay.
Because one of the options was in that box that ended up a bag.
Right. Okay.
They had two options.
Yes.
Said, oh,
so and you use something right before them, of course, to deal with that. Okay. All right. Hold on. So everybody's clear on that. I think one of the things that we have to be important, we have to see as important is that when we give the feedback for errors, and I'm going to send you something on errors only, but that you can read through on your own, is that you be careful. Just watch the way in which you correct them, especially those students you have who are speaking Jamaican Creole. It's a big issue we have in the department. I know we have it when we go out on supervision. Speaking properly is what we are used to. I mean, I don't know if, well, for sure, everybody in this room must have heard that idea, that statement. Okay, everybody over there, Vernon, Kira, and Lyra, I'm not sure. Have you ever heard that statement where you brought up hearing all the time, speak proper English every time you spoke Creole? Yes, so so you're familiar with that terminology as well. Exactly, which is why I'm emphasizing it now. I know I grew up like that as well, and I was always told to speak properly or speak proper English. Right, exactly. But the important thing is that sometimes you have to allow them to use the Creole, right? I don't know what the situation is for you, Lyra and Kira there because of the French Creole, but sometimes we have to allow them to use Creole if that's the only language that they're coming with. You can't shut them up. You have to allow them to speak a little first, and then you try to transfer based on, of course, the target language. You restate what they're saying, that kind of thing. Do you have that problem, Kira and Lyra?
Definitely.
Yes. Do you allow them to speak that? Do you allow them to speak French Creole in the classroom?
No.
Yes.
The classroom?
Yes.
Okay, so we have two different.
I mean, I come from the south.
Say that. I knew it was going to come up, Lyra. I knew it was going to come up. I was just going to say one comes from the north and one comes from the south. Yes.
Yeah. It's based, and I teach at a real rural. I teach in a rural community.
Yeah.
So she in the city, it's different. I speak Creole in the class for them to understand.
Right.
But although
but they cannot write it.
Right, understandably, which is right. Okay, well, it's the same thing with us. I mean, or they couldn't write it anyway. They don't know the Cassidy system. But yes, it's the same idea. What I'm speaking about is oral communication, not written. That we wouldn't ask them to write it in, and they wouldn't know how to write it in. But yes, to just facilitate discussion, to allow them the freedom to get across a point, because we have to remember that they're not they don't lack intelligence because of the fact that they're using the Creole. Okay, and that's important. Kira, you were saying something, and I see the lovely eyebrows all over the place. Yes.
So I was saying that although I teach in the north, but our school is very popular among the students who come from the south, and we don't allow them
of the
from
South?
like from and we don't allow them.
Excuse me, I would like to say that she teaches at a top school.
Yes.
So that the caliber of students that you get are not the caliber of students that I teach at my school.
Yes, ma'am.
Which is basically students that are of lower ability from the rural area. I mean, I teach geography and history. If I'm doing coasts and all of these things, rivers, I have to use a lot of the Creole, the French Creole words for them to conceptualize what I'm speaking about, bassin, all of these things. I have to tell them in patois what it is, and then they're like, oh, okay.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
You
have to know.
So you're just.
But I'm saying that
let me hear what you're saying.
If you allow the students to speak like the Creole, the French Creole, when you're preparing them for exams, like how are they supposed to?
They write English, but a lot of the things that. But
then how would they know what is the proper English?
Okay, so Kira, before you launch the debate, what the thing is, you are to encourage the use of the target language. That's not that. I don't think anybody's debating that at all.
Right.
You get students who do not know the target language. Remember, I was going to say it's like you're speaking French to them, meaning that you guys do actually speak French, and I have two persons in there who speak it as well. In other words, they're not understanding a word you're saying when you're using the target language. You have to leave them there based on where they are, which is what I think Lyra's point is. Yeah, you just don't have a choice, which is why we have to know the two modes. I may not actually even use the language that they're using. I may not even be knowledgeable of all aspects of their language, because Creole also evolves. Different generations use different terms. Yeah, but I think that's the point. So it's not to say that we're encouraging them to stay in the use, because when you enter a Spanish class, you're not encouraged to speak English. You're encouraged to speak Spanish, right? You must speak Spanish, and it's the same idea with the target language. Okay.
In some Spanish. In some second languages, that's all they do is speak.
Yeah. Precisely, they're not allowed to use the mother tongue. Did you all hear what Ashley was saying?
That's one approach you mentioned, language policy.
Right. So she's just saying in some second language environments, you're not allowed to speak the mother tongue at all. You must only utilize the second language, which I think is Kira's point, isn't it? Okay.
But Dr. Spencer,
yes.
Don't you run the danger of having the students becoming so comfortable with, in effect, thinking in dialect and trying to translate it into standard English, that they come in at grade 7 and they function that way, and when they reach grade 10 and 11 to do the exams, they're still thinking in patois and translating into.
Well, the thing is, Vernon, they automatically think in patois. I mean, that comes naturally. You know that the mother tongue comes naturally. So we use our mother tongue naturally. What I'm saying is not to encourage. So if you come in at grade 7, I'm not expecting you to be at the same place in grade 10, right? So I'm trying to move you to a certain point. What I'm saying, though, is that some students will never speak because they do not understand, they have not acquired the target language. And so if I don't allow them to use what they have until they get to that point, I really isolate them and alienate them in my classroom space. It's more that kind of an orientation, not encouraging them to speak the patois, but understanding that if they are, and clearly explaining to them that it's not because the language is a problem, right? So as a teacher, I can't see the language as a problem, or there is going to be a problem. But getting them to use the target language when I know they're able to use the target language. So if there's somebody who says, if a child comes in, let's call a child Sheila and call the other child Ted. And if Sheila comes in and says something, hopefully Lyra and Kira can understand me, and says, Miss Moa, go bathroom, right? And I know that Sheila can say that same sentence in English. I'm going to say to her, when you say that sentence in English, I'll let you go to the bathroom. Miss, okay. Hey, may I go to the bathroom, please, right? Whereas Ted might come and can't say it, and so he'll just be saying, Miss, bathroom, miss. Right? Now, I'm not going to stop and argue with him and stand up there forever saying, what is the thing that you should say? Why are you not using the English? At that point, it's not going anywhere. So I understand what he's saying, and I say, okay, Ted, that's the name I call, right? Okay, Ted, you may go to the bathroom. And what I've done is used his right, transferred it so that he hears the English version of that statement. Do you understand, Vernon?
Okay.
Hold on, let me just hear it. Are you getting it? Vernon?
Yes, yes.
Okay, all right. Sashana was saying something. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm saying that I do the same thing with my students as well.
Not hearing.
He says not hearing.
For the allow them to practice French.
Yeah.
If they want to use the bathroom, they have to ask me in French to go to the bathroom.
Right.
So what I do is I'll tell them the first time and I'll write it on the board.
Right.
And if he or she wants to go out, then they'll have to
use it.
If
yes.
they make a mistake, then that's fine.
Of course, understood. Yes. And that's a good idea. Maybe that, and again, that's very functional, isn't it? It's teaching them how to use it.
I want to go to the bathroom in Spanish. That's all my teacher did.
She insisted on it.
Yeah. I still know how to do that, right?
Very good. I should have learned that before going to Costa Rica. I knew nothing about it when I went to Costa Rica. Anyway, okay. So I think we're all back on the same page, hopefully, where that is concerned. Okay, so we're going to wrap up actually, guys, because if you see what I'm seeing in front of me, then you understand. All right. So here's what you need to do on your own, though. Let me just flash back there so you understand what you're going to be required to do. We have not touched group communication in this class. It's something that I think you can read on your own. And what I'll do, I had some tasks here, but I will scan the tasks so that you can link the practical to the theory, okay? So please go through the group communication. It's very important because group communication allows for oral communication, all right? It allows for it not just in terms of content, what we can ask them to do, but how they have to talk to each other, the different types and varieties of language that have to be used in order for them to get things done. It's very important. So go through the group communication for me, please. I will scan these oral communication tasks to you. I want you to look through them. I want you to see if they're tasks that you would consider using naturally. And we'll talk about these tasks next week when we come back. And then just to close out now on what you should have gained through today's session, understanding the place of oral communication in the teaching of language and in the communicative language, teaching approach. Understand that oral communication is important generally for language learning, but particularly so for second language learning, okay? So in a second language or bilingual environment, it's particularly important. Understand that learners need to not just write and see the language, but they also need to hear the language. And that's why oral communication is so important, and that's a part of the process of acquiring the language itself, okay? And the ability to pay attention to this input requires careful planning, as learners can only develop the skill through actual hands-on practice, okay? They have to practice using the language. They're not just going to be able to come out because you have speaking wonderful standard English, okay? So that's the heart of it. So at the end, when you go back through this PowerPoint on your own, if you come back to this point, this is what you really should get to understand as the heart of everything. Any questions? No? Why am I okay. Okay. Alright, thank you all very much. Did Leah just walk out on me? Kira, I gotta find her. We spoke about blog last week?
No.
Yes, we did. That's the first thing you came in latte. You were latte last week. But if you have, remember I said if you have any questions, please just everything is in the course outline. Yes, everything on the assessment, and it is due next week. Okay. I'll send out an email, and we can perhaps negotiate if you need to negotiate time. We can think about negotiating. Please remember, you're okay. I thought you stepped out on me. All right. Please remember also that we will not be having a class on March 24. Make sure you note that, especially because of travel arrangements. It's the worst thing to make travel arrangements and then you just suddenly remember. So March 24 for I said it's at the very, very first class. I have a 10-day span of time that I won't be in Jamaica. I'll be in England, Cambridge for most of the time. Conference, work, meetings, and conference. So, and it's cold. So, but yeah, a little bit of niceness mixed with holy power. All right. But I will commute. Our VLE should have been up, and so I've already structured everything so that you would have access to the unit based on our VLE. I'm hoping it will be up by that time. You're not the only one. Okay, right. Alright. Okay, Ashley's making confessions that she does not want to make right now. Alright. Kira, Lewa, you're registered. Kira, you said the issue was that you had switched from the other languages, so that needs to be sorted out.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to write a letter to Miss Mills, just asking her to, see how we can work out this problem. If not, I'm going to have to do it by email, which is kind of all over the place. Okay? Alright, everything cool, clear, lovely, class. Just one day. You see how excited you are that there's no class? That's just wrong. I'm feeling. Alright, take good care. Take care. Please remember. Okay, actually, please remember to email if you have any problems at all. Alright, you don't need to. No, you don't need to. Alright. Kira and Lira, you cannot leave with your face looking frustrated. You have to smile. You can't. Your face looks too confusing. You can't leave like that. Thank you. Alright, Bernard, please get the camera going. We'd like to see you, not just hear you.
Yes.
You know what?
Yeah, I'll talk to you by next week.
Alright, take good care. Bye-bye.
Bye, teacher.
Take good care.